Current Saints head coach Dennis Allen talks the loss to Tampa Bay and defensive performance. All right, Dennis, let's hear what you got to say. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, no hyperbole or hyperbole, as some of my friends say. This could be Dennis Allen's last press conference, because if he loses to the Broncos, I think he'll get fired. Especially if he loses to the Broncos in an embarrassing fashion. I think he could get canned. So let's hear what Dennis has to say. And I'll tell you this, Dennis, I'm coming into this in a bad mood. Okay? So you got some explaining to do.
Okay, guys, just a couple of injury deals just to make you guys aware of that. Chris Olave's in the concussion protocol. And Tyrann Mathieu had a forearm injury and did not return to the game. So that's kind of the injuries.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Dennis. Let's get to the 600 yards given up. Let's get to the 8 yards per rush. Let's get to the 8 yards per play. Actually, let's back it up a little bit, Dennis. Let's go back to the Eagles game where we gave up 7 yards per play and 7 yards per rush. Actually, Dennis, you mind talking about the Falcons game where we gave up 6.5 yards per play? Can we talk about that, Dennis? Or can we talk about the Chiefs game where the Chiefs were on the field for 40 minutes?
At least that I'm aware of to this point. Thoroughly disappointed in the game. It was not acceptable. It was not good enough. It wasn't good enough from a coaching standpoint. It wasn't good enough from a playing standpoint. And we've got a lot of getting better to do, and we got a short time to do it. And so, we need to get some guys healthy, but we've got to play better than we did today in all areas.
It's a bit of a conundrum. It really is, because Dennis says, which I agree, we do need to get some guys healthy. Yes, we do. Certainly doesn't help having 3 offensive linemen out. It certainly doesn't help having Chris Olave out. No doubt. But none of that is going to give me an answer for why we're giving up 8 yards per play. So what I'm trying to figure out is how you have your defense and you're giving up the most yards in the NFL on a per game basis in the entire NFL. How is that possible? How is it possible, Dennis, that you are a defensive coach and you are a defensive coordinator, and last year you were the highest rated defensive play caller, and now you're allowed to focus solely on the defense, and the defense has turned to doo-doo? You're like a reverse King Midas right now. And if you aren't going to have the defense being good, then we might as well have any other coach out there, Dennis.
What do you think happened in the second half? Like second quarter, you guys kind of had some fire, got the turnovers.
Yeah, well, we didn't tackle. I think that was the biggest thing. I thought our tackling was atrocious in the game.
It was. Now we have a bit of a whodunit, Dennis, because the follow-up to that question would be who is teaching the tackling? I wonder whose job it would be to oversee the tackling.
And so, when you don't tackle, you give up explosive plays and you give up big plays, and then it just kind of snowballed on us a little bit, but it was not good enough.
Dennis, this team has never given up this many points or yards since you've been either coordinator or head coach. How do you account for that, and kind of what do you see when you look at those numbers on the stats?
We have to tackle better. I thought that was the biggest thing in the game. We didn't tackle in the game, and look, let's make no mistake about it. When it comes to the defense, that's on me. I got to do a better job with our guys. I got to make sure we understand what we're doing. We got to do more tackling drills. We got to, whatever the case may be. But it was not a good defensive performance at all. And
I'm having some trouble right now, ladies and gentlemen, seeing straight. I just got chills. I got chill goosebumps on my body because we are on a 4-game losing streak where we've given up over 6.5 yards per play every one of those games. We have just come off of giving the Buccaneers their career high in yards per game or in a game. We have had one of the worst defensive performances in the Saints' history and the worst defensive performance of any team this season. And the head coach of that team looked me in the face via YouTube and told me that they need to do tackling drills. Well, I got bad news. That isn't really going to do it for me, brother. The answer to this 4-game skid, the answer to a complete collapse in the defense, the answer to right now we have the worst defense in the NFL. The answer to all of that cannot be, well, I have a bright idea. The bright idea is that we're just going to do some tackling drills. That probably isn't going to do it.
And look, I mean, that needs to be an area that we can count on. And it's been an area that we can count on, but right now it's
besides this season.
It's not.
Dennis, is there
Spencer did today?
just in his day?
I thought overall, he did some good things. I mean, there were some encouraging things, some things that he's going to learn from, from a mistake standpoint on his part. I don't think we did enough around him to help him. I mean, it was hard for us to be able to run the football. I thought they really won the kind of the interior part of the line of scrimmage, really probably on both sides of the ball. I think they won the line of scrimmage. I thought he did some things really well early in the game, and in particular the first half. And then, as the second half kind of went on, I thought, they started to pressure him a little bit more, we weren't able to be as good in protection, and, it made it more challenging for him.
Dennis, was there any commonality, any common thread you could find in the problems with the tackling? Was there sort of one thing, or is there anything you could?
Well, look, I mean, I think part of it's angles, okay, it's technique.
Maybe we should get a geometry teacher then to be the head coach. Let's get a geometry teacher to be the DC, because if that's what it is, if we're because if it's angles, that's the problem, Dennis, then yeah, let's just go to the local high school, get the local algebra teacher, the local geometry teacher, get a couple protractors, and we'll be good to go. I just don't know if that's the case. I just don't know if that's really the problem right now. Do we need protractors on the sideline, Dennis?
All right, it's wrapping up, so there's a lot of fundamental things that we're not good enough with the tackling.
Did the alien from Space Jam come down and suck the talent out of these defensive players? Because, again, you're talking about mostly 10-year veterans who have been doing this at a high level for their entire career, and now we're going to sit here and say, yeah, well, they're not really doing the fundamentals. They're not wrapping up. They're not, we need to do some tackling drills. How'd that happen? How do all pros, and there are multiple all pros on this defense, who just forgot how to tackle, forgot the fundamentals, forgot how to wrap up?
And I think it starts with, leverage and angles. That's where it starts, and then the fundamental of actually making a tackle. We got to do a better job of wrapping up. But that's 2 weeks in a row that we haven't done a good job of tackling, and that's probably our biggest concern. You talk about explosive plays. A lot of those are coming, on underneath plays that become explosive plays.
That part's true. A lot of what the Buccaneers did, if you go back and watch the game, a lot of their explosive plays were just checkdowns. They were just dump passes into the flats, and then that was it. They would go for 40 yards, 50 yards. So, like that's a huge issue when their best play is just kind of dumping the ball off, and then we're so inept at angles and leverage that those little dump balls go for 40, 50 yards.
That's something you can fix in 4 days?
It's something we better fix in 4 days.
How does something like that spring up from a strength to the, I mean, is there a rhyme or reason?
Great question. Exactly what I just said. How does something like that happen when that is the strength of your team? How does the strength of your team, which has been the defense for a long time now, how does that just, oops, they forgot how to tackle? And in a way, what that hombre and what I'm saying is we're kind of calling BS. That you can't, it just doesn't make any sense that it boils down to some fundamental lack of leverage or fundamental lack of angles when you're talking about all pros who've done this at a very high level for a very long time. So there has to be something else. It can't just be, we got to get back to tackling drills.
I don't really know. You know what I mean? I don't have that answer right now as to what that challenge is. But I think, one of the areas it starts with is, being able to put yourself in a position to be able to get off the field. And when you get off the field, you play less plays. And so I think that's part of our issue too.
Yes, how much of tackling is technique versus just effort?
Well, I think it's a combination of both, I think later on in the game, I think we could have attacked the ball carrier a little bit more. And so we'll look at the tape, but it was not good enough. And I got to do a better job.
Dennis, after a game like this, do you welcome a game then on a Thursday night?
It is kind of, I know what this guy's saying. I have heard that after a really, really bad performance, teams do want to get back out there as fast as possible. They don't want to sit there and dwell on the game. Like, you don't want to take this game and then go to a bye week. So it is probably good that we're playing 4 days later, where you can just forget about it, on to the next one, whatever. Because this is not the kind of game you want to linger on.
Out of the system.
Yeah, you're probably a little too early to ask me that question.
What's the mindset like right now with your team? I mean, you've got some real key leaders also out with Tyron, Taysom, Derek. I mean, the leadership of the team.
It's look, it's challenging, but we can't sit here and sulk and moan. We got to figure out how we're going to get better. I told the team in there, we got to get better, and we got a short period of time to do it. And everybody needs to look at themselves, coaches, players, everybody, all right, and make sure we're doing everything we possibly can to get this thing going in the right direction, because right now it's not where we want it to be.
Well, I mean, Dennis, you're the key leader. You're supposed to be the key leader. You're the head coach. The head coach is supposed to be the team leader of this team, or any team. You have injuries. Yes, for sure, some key leaders have been hurt, but the head coach is supposed to be the overall team leader of the team. And Dennis has never been that in his career. And, he's certainly not. I mean, there have been at times where, like last year, where there was questions of, has he lost the locker room? I think there's questions right now. Have you lost the locker room? And he's been the head coach for what, 5 years now? This is his 5th year. And if 2 or 3 out of 5 years you are being called into question of, have you lost the locker room? That's kind of concerning.
Going back to what you were saying a minute ago about maybe not attacking the ball carrier at the end of the game, are you saying you felt like some of the guys weren't giving complete effort?
Yes.
Is there anything
that is what that's saying.
I'm saying we missed a lot of tackles, and we need to do a better job of tackling.
When you say coaching obviously can be a part of the equation, was there anything on any of those plays in particular where schematically backfired on you guys?
Well, look, we made a couple of changes as the game went on in terms of how we were setting our front to try to, deal with some of the run plays.
Well, I'd probably throw those out.
That we were getting. I don't think we did a great job of crack replace. I just think we played poorly, and
Crack replace? I mean, unless Rick James is your middle linebacker, I'm not really concerned about the crack replace, my guy. I'm hearing a lot of terms and terminology and verbiage for stuff that I don't really care about, because it's just hard for me to say that these are the reasons for a complete collapse of what was once, like, I don't know, last season, a top 10 defense, to now being the worst defense in the NFL when it is relatively unchanged roster-wise, and the leader of said defense is the head coach and has been there for years.
when you do that, obviously you got to look at yourself as a coach, myself, all the coordinator, position coaches. I think we all got to look at ourselves and see how we can be better. So that's what we'll do this week.
What happened do you know what happened on the play with Jonathan Abram earlier in the game, where he appeared like he tried to call a timeout and it wasn't given to him, so he was on the ground whenever the ball was snapped? Like, did the coaches not see that he was trying to call a timeout? Did the officials not see it? Do you know what?
Yeah, well, the officials didn't see it, and it happened right about the time that the, snap was being made. Yeah, I don't think anybody really saw it in time to get the timeout called.
Obviously, there was a lot more to it on defense today, but the decision to stick with the corners on the sides instead of having Marshawn follow Mike like he has in the past, was there a particular reason for that?
No, look, I mean, we matched them the first game, last year, and then the second game we didn't match, and so I think we have confidence in our guys.
Yeah, I didn't think that was a big deal. Like, people made a big deal about Marshawn not matching with Evans all game, but I thought Evans was held in check, and I thought it was fine. Now, you do have to ask yourself, like, okay, well, then why did Chris Godwin have, whatever it was, 12 catches for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns? Like, because it wasn't because Marshawn Lattimore was on Mike Evans. So what? Because it sounds like you wouldn't match Lattimore on Evans to have Lattimore helping out with, just spreading around. So then what was going? Why did Godwin go nuts?
And I didn't feel like that was the challenge today,
Yeah, same. I agree.
I felt like the challenge was the underneath throws that, became long plays, and the running plays that,
Yes, agreed.
became long plays because, we didn't do as good job getting them on the ground as we needed to.
Yeah, on top of everything else, the pressures that didn't result in sacks to keep the plays alive, is that?
Yeah. Well, there was a lot to be frustrated about, and so there's not a lot of areas other than having 3 takeaways in the game. There wasn't a lot of areas defensively that we can, say was very good. And
No, there was not. Yeah.
We'll have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how we can
Throw
do
the
better.
drawing board away.
Dennis, can we talk a little bit about going down 17 and then really being able to rally? Can you tell us how the team was doing on the sideline?
Yeah, look, I think all the way through the first half, I think our guys were in it. Our guys were excited. Our guys kept battling. Even with losing guys like Chris Olave, who I think is an important part of what we do, and Tyrann Mathieu, and some of those guys that I thought our guys, fought. There's a lot of energy in the building at that time. And it really didn't start to snowball until the second half.
Caught y'all a couple times with the check downs down to the running back, especially when linebackers came in for the A-gaps on blitz. Is that something where the safety has to come down and help, or is that a corner issue?
Well, I'm not sure exactly which particular play.
That was the one whenever they came out on the whip. No, that might have been the curl route that Godwin got down the sidelines and it was missed tackle.
Yeah, I'm still not exactly sure which.
Take time for one more, please.
Did you have any extra words with Spencer or any counsel for him before his first start?
Nothing other than just go out there and go play. You know what I mean? Like, let's don't put too much pressure on this deal. Just go out and do what you've been doing since you were, that high, and go have fun doing it. And look, I thought early in the game, I thought he did some really good things. And then I think, as the game went on, the score changed, things became more difficult.
Do you stick with him through
Yes.
this as a
Yes.
starter?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my intention. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was certainly good enough to remain the starter. I would keep him as a starter. Okay, so there you go. Let's get back to tackling drills. Ladies and gentlemen, get on down in the comments below. Let me know what you thought about Dennis's interview. Will this be his last interview? I will see you in the next video.